After a 15-year drop in student enrollment, things are changing for the Oklahoma City school system. It's the second consecutive year of growth in student population. In fact, this year there are more students than projected. 41,600 students are enrolled. That's 100 over the projected figure and 700 more students than last year. But the growth in student population hasn't created real problems for the system, according to Superintendent Tom Payzant.
Well, we had planned with extra teacher positions in case our enrollment was higher than projected. So I had 30 teaching positions that weren't allocated, and I have assigned 15 of those teaching positions in the last couple of weeks to take care of the schools where enrollment is up. And I still have 15 positions left, which could be assigned in the next 2 to 3 weeks if enrollment continues to grow.
The system has more students than projected, but have other problems been created by the shutdown of schools in the district? I'm Debbie Mash. I'll have that story on Action 4 at 5.
The Moore School Board has been under fire since it fired 6 elementary educators accused of falsifying trip expense reports. Superintendent Bob Spence has been in the spotlight because he recommended those terminations. More patrons upset over the firings have vowed to defeat a $4.5 million school bond election next week. Fearing a bond defeat, Superintendent Spence today offered his resignation.
I see it as an opportunity for those people who feel I'm the issue, and there are a significant number of them, who are saying vote it down because of Bob Spence. And I'm saying I'm not going to keep a job to hurt kids.
Spence's resignation was a popular topic at tonight's meeting of Moore Citizens for a Fair School Board.
His resignation will not affect the actions taken by the Moore School Board. Don't forget it. So, speaking for myself, nothing has changed. We're just missing one more person.
The Citizens for a Fair School Board group has not taken a stand on the school bond vote. Tonight, it encouraged voters to go to the polls next Tuesday and do their own thinking. Scott Wallace, Action 4 and more.
These are the names that we had on advanced. We just want to give your people the opportunity to enjoy our products also. The Consul General from the Consulate General.
These people that are the suppliers here and one of my good friends that I've come to know only since I've been in government work down here.
An attempt for, people knew what they were doing. They knew it was against the law.
Well, obviously there's been a number of allegations, and we have already reported on another area of the Department of Human Services operations, and there's a number of allegations that will probably be checked out in the future. Given the resources, we're going to check those things out, and we're going to report the results to the state of Oklahoma.
These executives of credit unions and savings and loans say one of their problems was not having enough information. The FDIC doesn't let anyone know if a bank is having difficulties. But if Committee Chairman Ferdinand St. Germain has his way, there will be changes. Information will be disclosed to everyone.
But why should we just disclose to a chosen few? If you disclose, you disclose, and it should be to the general public, because you have members of the general public who stand to lose just as much as, I mean, after all, the big banks, the upstream banks, are much more sophisticated than some of the small credit unions got burned in this instance. So why should you just protect the sophisticates and throw the hard-working people to the wolves?
St. Germain doesn't worry that these disclosures could lead to runs on banks. On the contrary, he thinks it would cause bank officials to be more careful.
It was from here that little Patty disappeared last night. Her grandfather apparently thought she was in bed, but when her mother came in to check on the children early this morning, her 6-year-old daughter was gone. The police were called and a search was started on foot as well as in the air with the police helicopter. Members of the family joined in. Together they searched for almost 4 hours. They combed the neighborhood and then turned to a wooded area near the little girl's home. Police were making their way through the tall weeds and deep drainage ditches when a relative found Patty's body under a tree.
The child was apparently beaten to death and may have been sexually molested. We do have a 16-year-old suspect in custody at police headquarters. Witnesses reported having seen the suspect late last night with the little girl. We arrested him shortly after the body was discovered nearby at his grandmother's residence.
Police now say the suspect is only 15 years old. There'll be no further information on the boy unless he is booked in the murder. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Southside, Oklahoma City.
The Arts Council of Oklahoma City is best known for organizing the annual Festival of Arts and for various other art gatherings in the city. But preparation for those activities takes a busy staff. Employees for the Arts Council have outgrown their current building on Paseo Street. For the last 6 years, these offices have served in planning and sponsoring art exhibits, from oil paintings to ballet. The Arts Council has been involved in making Oklahoma City residents more aware of cultural items at their fingertips. That has not been easy, since the Arts Council is in a neighborhood not familiar to everyone. So for that reason, along with needing more space, the council is moving downtown into the old Central Fire Station. City officials agreed to rent the old firehouse for $3,000 a year for the next 10 years. It will cost the Arts Council about $300,000 to convert this building into a downtown center. The council hopes by giving the old fire station new life, it will help downtown overall.
It'll mean a more centralized location for the Arts Council. Will be more accessible to all of the people of Oklahoma City. It'll mean hopefully the start of a development of a cultural center in Oklahoma City, right in the downtown location next to the Myriad Gardens. We envision the spreading of Myriad Gardens across Hudson Avenue to this location through a pedestrian crosswalk, blocking off California, having the Spring Festival of the Arts in this location.
Thurston says the change from fire station to Arts Center will officially start next month and is to be finished by late February. The Arts Council can choose just about any room or hallway to work on, since most everything inside the building is falling apart. Thurston adds just making this old fire station livable will be a work of art by itself. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the old Central Fire Station.
Karen Silkwood was a laboratory analyst for Kerr-McGee Corporation. She was contaminated by plutonium produced at a Kerr-McGee plant in November 1974. Silkwood told the Atomic Energy Commission Kerr-McGee had violated health and safety regulations. She began collecting information to document her charges. On November 7, 1974, Silkwood was on her way to meet with a New York Times reporter and a labor union official. She was killed in a car accident. Some people suspected she had been run off the road. The Silkwood family filed suit against Kerr-McGee for injuries suffered by Karen from her exposure to plutonium. At trial in federal district court, the family was awarded $500,000 for Silkwood's injuries and another $10 million in punitive damages. A federal appeals court in Denver reversed that decision. Now this decision is before the United States Supreme Court. The court has asked the Justice Department to file a brief discussing the appellate court's decision. In another Oklahoma case, the Supreme Court will decide whether to hear the appeal of George Moskovsky's libel suit against the Daily Oklahoman. And the state of Oklahoma has two cases against the state of Arkansas. One involves a border dispute. The other concerns pollution of the Illinois River. The Supreme Court is hearing this case because it settles all disputes between the states. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the state capitol.
And that's not just true for me, that's true for every campaign in Oklahoma. And we had to do everything that we could, sit down and look at the situation and do what was necessary to make sure that our advertising budget could stay in place. And we've placed more emphasis on fundraising. We're having record numbers of small contributions. Our headquarters is 4500 North Classen here in Oklahoma City, and I might add, if somebody'd like to send us a check for advertising, we'd be more than happy to accept it.
Yesterday, automotive expert Chuck Pendergast said Alan Massey was driving an unsafe police car when he was involved in a crash in which 2 people died. Based on Pendergast's findings, DA Bob Macy dropped negligent homicide charges against Massey and criticized the way police cars are maintained.
It's appalling to me that the city garage would allow a car that's going to be used in emergency situations to be placed into service with defective brakes and worn-out tires.
Some city officials are angry about Macy's statement. They say police cars are well maintained, and Macy is just playing politics. 50 police cars are brought into the city garage each day. The cars undergo preventative maintenance every 4,000 miles. If a problem arises between times for scheduled maintenance, an officer is supposed to have the car worked on. City officials say the system has kept the cars in good shape. Massey's car was checked after the accident by the city's own expert. Assistant City Manager Tim Maupin said his expert disagreed sharply with Chuck Pendergast's findings.
Based on his examination of the braking system and the component parts, coupled with the 100 feet of straight skid marks at the scene of the accident, it was his conclusion that the brakes were functioning properly on that vehicle. I think you just have to get inside of Mr. Macy's mind to find out why he would come to the conclusions he did.
Maupin also said the public shouldn't worry about the condition of police cars. He said the mechanics do a good job, and there's no reason to make any major changes in the way the cars are maintained. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the City Garage.
This may look like a quiet apartment from the outside, but inside you'll find one of the most profitable operations in town.
Hello? Yes, I do. Okay, I've got a pair in section 105 that's in the upper deck on the 50-yard line. I need $150 each for them.
John Keller and David Manley call themselves ticket brokers, a fancy name for scalpers. And when OU plays Texas, these two have a heyday. And their bank accounts aren't hurting at all when you consider they started out with well over 200 tickets and now have only a couple on hand.
One game I got hold of some extra tickets and went out and tried to sell them, and I sold them pretty quick and thought, that's a pretty good way to make some money. So I went out and bought a few more from somebody that had some for sale and turned around and sold them again, and it's just grown from there.
Okay, so how much would I have to pay you to buy a ticket?
Okay, right now for OU Texas, they're running from about $70 each for end zone up to about $150 each for good 50-yard line tickets.
So far, so good. The tickets are pulling in big cash. But still, we found our fair share of fans who wouldn't pay that kind of money to see this game.
What's the most you'd pay to get a ticket into that game if you had to deal with a scalper?
Oh, about 50.
About 50. You wouldn't pay $150 to get in there?
No way.
No.
How much would I honestly pay? I don't know, probably $20.
You wouldn't go 150?
Well, I sold two for 150.
Up until now, the highest price ticket we've heard of is $300. But if you're off to Dallas empty-handed, never fear. That $300 ticket will come down in price at kickoff time. Dan Slocum, Action 4, along Interstate 35.
OU fans woke up this morning to the news that the Sooner Longhorn game would be televised on cable TV. People on the multimedia cable system were instantly the most popular people in town. But when the 2 o'clock kickoff time rolled around, all that was on were old reruns of Westerns. The apparent change in programming left many of the fans angry.
It's been a number of years since my husband and I were able to attend one in person, and so he is really disappointed.
I was quite disappointed, to be frank. I had invited all these people over to my home for the game, and then we were watching the Riflemen, reruns of the 50s.
But 10 minutes later, the game suddenly showed up, just in time to see the first OU touchdown scored. The gloom suddenly turned to jubilation in most living rooms, and the fans settled down to watch another classic between the two schools. Texas University officials were trying to keep the game off the air, fearing that they would lose network programming later in the season. But according to cable officials, that should not be the case.
As far as we can tell, no. I don't see how Texas could be held responsible for what's going on this particular case. It may be, but...
Why?
All we are doing is retransmitting a signal that we are allowed to do so by the FCC, and Texas really has no control over this.
Legal hassles aside, the televised presentation of the game provided a good many Sooner fans an opportunity to watch the annual Classic, and although two major networks decided not to show the game, the enthusiasm displayed in Oklahoma living rooms proves there is still a lot of interest in a Longhorn-Sooner matchup. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Men and women janitors for the International Total Services Incorporated have been fired without notice. They had been cleaning the Rogers World Airport, but allegedly not doing a good job according to airport staff. Today they came to the ITS offices for some answers. Their rally did little but give each other moral support. The angry employees say the firings were simply unfair.
We had nothing to work with, and our mops were black. We could not get them clean. We even brought Clorox out, our own Clorox, and we could not get them clean. Our carts, I wired mine up so that I could use it. But we were fired without cause and replaced with Koreans. That is not right. I do not appreciate all this unemployment and everything, and I am 53 years old, and it is hard to find a job at that age.
The fired workers have been replaced by 15 Korean janitors. This group is acting as troubleshooters until permanent replacements can be hired. They are legal aliens with work visas. Some of the fired workers have charged their replacements were hired at less than minimum wage. A company president from ITS says ITS was losing thousands of dollars because the airport will not pay if the janitors don't do a good job cleaning. He adds ITS will do what they can to help some of those fired.
If an individual's name is given to me either by our existing management staff or airport personnel that's associated with that person, if that individual was in fact performing the task and was unfortunate enough to be caught up in this group changeover, we'll be glad to make whatever recommendations we can and attempts we can to help that individual find employment.
City officials were not too pleased to hear about the firings, and one council member thinks that maybe the contract with ITS should be canceled.
I would really like to consider the 3 different clauses that we have in a contract for cancellation and go back out for bids for the continuation of the contract until July of '83.
ITS says it's sorry the matter ended like this, but business is business. Still, city leaders may not be ready to close the book on the case. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
It's not unusual for Oklahoma State's baseball field to be quiet and empty in October. But this night is an exception. Allie Reynolds Field was to see one of its biggest crowds ever. The students filed in twos to the unofficial tune of more than 3,000 kissers. Once in, they began to warm up for the event, as any true athlete would. For the singles, this meant stealing kisses from anyone and everyone. The kiss-off was kicked off appropriately with one big kiss for the state of Oklahoma on its 75th birthday.
1, 2, 3! Wow!
And then they were off. Each couple had their own style, but some showed a little more creativity. One young man felt it necessary to bring his fire helmet in case things got too hot. Others brought along messages to be sent home a la media. As quickly as you can count to 1, 2, 3, the 3 minutes were up and a world record had been broken.
Even after it was all over, some people just wouldn't give up. Somehow that makes me feel like I was left out of a very fulfilling experience. My only chance to be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Sherry, you don't have to feel left out.
Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at Oklahoma State University.
Jim Thorpe was born in Oklahoma Territory in 1888. His mother was a Sac Fox Indian. His father was half Sac Fox. Thorpe started developing as an athlete early. He played college ball in Kansas and Pennsylvania, and in 1912 he won 2 Olympic gold medals. The victory was short, though. Thorpe had unwittingly played semi-pro ball one summer, disqualifying him from Olympic competition. It was not the end of Thorpe's athletic prowess, and it was only the beginning of the efforts to get the medals back. The answer was always no, until this morning.
We all been fighting for this for so long and had so many disappointments and turn downs. You know, when I first heard on the radio this morning, I thought, well, there was a little commercial break in between, and I said, oh, here we go again. They're going to turn us down, you know. And then when it came back on and said these records have been restored and the medals returned, it was a very wonderful feeling.
Thorpe's family and the people of Oklahoma are surprised only that it has taken 70 years for Thorpe's awards to be returned. But with or without those awards, Jim Thorpe will always be a hero in Oklahoma. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.
when we came out from our neighbor colonists, there was flames going up above the apartment, and there was glass breaking, and the whole patio seemed to be on fire. And the fire engines were roaring up, and they put it out. Second time today in these apartments.
Really? When was the other fire?
This afternoon in the dumpster.
TBS, the anytime, any place there's a phone bill paying service.
You've probably seen the commercials. It's called TBS, the touch banking system. And the concept is to pay your bills by calling a computer and punching in a special code.
The process is very simple. You just pick up the phone and call the main number. You get a mechanical voice that tells you what to do.
Hello. Thank you for calling Touch Banking Systems Telephone Bill Payment Service. Please enter your TBS account number.
Tell them what bill you want to pay and when you want to pay it. And the transaction's taken care of.
Your coded information is then processed here at the main computer center. And all your bills can be paid the same day you phone them in. According to one bank official, it's a service that most customers should enjoy.
As a consumer, it is intended to give you the convenient method of making a bill payment. Rather than going to the post office and mailing a payment, writing the check, buying an envelope, and processing that as you presently do, you simply pick up the phone, call TBS, tell us who to pay, and we pay them.
The Oklahoma touch banking system is not unique. Many large cities around the country have been utilizing the system for several years. But Oklahoma bankers hope to perfect the project and utilize tomorrow's technology to help Oklahomans pay their bills today. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
This doctor is learning how to bring down the number of sudden cardiac deaths, something that's being stressed to doctors in every country. To help them, a course has been designed to teach advanced cardiac life support. It's the largest standardized medical course in the world. Hopefully, it will cut down the second largest killer.
Okay, she's still pulseless. Take a quick look with your paddles. Put your paddles on.
Today, physicians are learning to recognize abnormal heart rhythm and what to do to make it normal again. It's now known that the rhythm is the killer, not the damage left by a heart attack. You've probably seen this machine on television before. It's called a defibrillator, and for certain types of heart attacks, it can shock the heart back to a normal beat. These doctors will practice this over and over again until it becomes second nature.
Within 4 to 5 minutes, irreversible brain damage begins to occur. That doesn't give you much time to think, so what we want to have accomplished here is that every doctor is able to act reflexly and know immediately what kind of steps to take and how to handle the situation to restore the circulation as quickly as possible so that brain death doesn't occur.
Besides the hands-on experience, the doctors will attend lectures and then take tests on all the material. Passing or failing these tests could one day mean the difference between losing or saving a life. For Medical Matters, Sherry Sellers, Action 4.